Kindness is often misunderstood.
Pivot, change, enhance, de-escalate, whatever we need to do.
To provide them service. They're in essence alienating their organization.
Also, again, making that reputation more valuable, more trustworthy, more even empathetic.
Kindness is often misunderstood.
We are very pleased to be welcoming Tim Wenzel, co-founder of the Kindness Games, Jonathon Harris, Vice President, Group 337, Jason Sikora, Business Development Manager, Allied Universal, and Erin Mann as herself. It is a pleasure to welcome you all for the Kindness Games panel. And we're going to be looking at the question of being an effective, kind leader and whether or not effective leadership as modernization of corporate security is a thing. Already, we got Go Kindness Crusaders in the chat box. So Tim, let's set the scene. Why are we talking kindness?
If you look at the world around us for the last year and a half, we've had the big disruption with COVID. That has put everybody at home. And during this time at home, we have all been stuck to the media providers that we have, the politicians that we have, the things that we listen to. And this echo chamber has been created around us that some people are good and some people are bad. And whichever side you end up at, you have to have an ideological war with the other side. And last September of 2020, Lee Otten and I decided that that wasn't going to do. And we were going to counter-program this ideological Hunger Games with the Kindness Games and spend time reaching out on LinkedIn and elevating people for the good that they're doing in the world. And this is important because this is a way that you can manipulate your own mental state towards positivity, which actually helps you perceive the world and react to it differently. So you go from anger, which is what the driving forces in our culture want us to be right now for whatever reason, to curiosity. I wonder why that person would do or say that. I wonder what's going on with them right now. And this sounds kind of ridiculous, but two other people on this panel are involved in the Kindness Games as well. And I think that they would probably say that this ability to lead with kindness is the most engaging and most sustainable form of leadership that is available.
I like it. And we have Kindness Games participants in the audience. I can see Al has his hand up. I wonder, do we want Al to join as well? Is that what you've got your hand up for, Al? Let's try it. Impromptu. And it's just kindness. Why not? Be kind. Welcome, everybody. Erin, let's then start off with you. The kindness concept, we've just outlined it. We've just thought about it. Is this saying that the future of corporate security modernization means that we are going to need empathetic security leaders in whatever function? It could be in sales, it could be in operations, it could be somewhere else, but empathy. Is that what we're saying with this panel, Erin?
Oh, yeah. My personal opinion is that the more empathy that we can drive into our everyday activities, whether you're a manager with direct reports, you're a salesperson working with customer, you're an engineer building a product, if empathy is one of the strengths that you're driving with and something that you're really prioritizing and being intentional about, you have, I think we all do, have such an opportunity to make a bigger impact on whoever we're working with, because we're taking the time to intentionally understand their viewpoint, what they need, why do they need those things, and then how can I use my skills, my talents, whatever role I'm supposed to play in that relationship to not only get to know that person and make them feel valued for that time that we're spending together, but then also, in the security world, build security solutions, systems, physical security, cybersecurity, that take those needs into account and are really built knowing that someone else is going to benefit from the time that we took to get to know them. And I think that goes for the personal relationships we build. It's no secret the security industry is a huge relationship and network built industry, and you get very far by building personal relationships with the individuals you're interacting with. But I think that to really be able to deliver on security today and in the future, we need to understand what security means to a lot of different people. And we have to understand what safety means to a lot of different people. And unless we put on that empathetic hat and really channel our emotional intelligence to understand different people's socializations, their understanding of the world, how they interact with spaces, we're not going to be able to deliver safety and security to everyone. So I think leading with empathy is possibly the quickest way to get to that place.
I like that. And that quickest way, that ties in with modernization, because modernization sounds quick, doesn't it? Sounds fast, sounds the way to get people's trust. And let's face it, people come out of the military, or people who are trained in verbal judo, like the police, they're trained in getting people's trust quickly. So why not make that a kind feature? Why not celebrate that feature about security? But Jason, welcome. Are we saying that perhaps we haven't been kind enough thus far? And in that, what does that mean?
Well, I think yes and no from some degree. I feel like there's certainly a lot of kindness that can be given out there altogether. I mean, you see it on the news and everything that we read as kind of a culture right now that there's so much just the opposite of kindness going on. And I feel like, what we're doing in the kindness games, and so from that product, or even in the security industry itself, kindness really kind of breeds kindness. So I feel like the more you put out there, the more kindness that's going to be filling the entire industry, but also people's lives as well. I feel like that was one of the first things that really kind of occurred to me, the more I kind of ingrained in kindness and everything that I was doing. So yeah, I definitely feel like there's more that we could be doing. There's not enough kindness out there, but at the same point in time, it's always nice to see the more progress that we provide, and as far as kindness is concerned, the more it actually comes through fold.
And it is very important. This industry is very small. That's why when we see Twitter beefs or LinkedIn dirty laundry, right? It's a bad idea, because that person is going to be in your life for quite some time. So it's probably a good idea to be kind. And that's probably a more modernized approach, given that we're all on social media. John, welcome. Let's then challenge this a bit further. The gray man or woman, the professional outlook, does being in a hard environment mean you have to be hard or hardened?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think there's a concept that I was introduced to. Now there's a book called The Coffee Bean that I'll recommend to everyone. It's written by the gentleman's name escapes me. Damon is the first name, but in essence, it's a concept of you can take a coffee bean, a carrot, and an egg, and you put it in hot water. And what happens to those three things? An egg is becomes soft and easily breakable, or I'm sorry, hardened. On the outside, hardened up, you get the hard-boiled egg. It's callous to the world. The carrot gets soft and kind of vulnerable and impacted by the world. The coffee bean influences the environment. It turns it into coffee. So when you think about how you react to challenging situations, you're either hardened by it, you're maybe crushed by it, or you have the opportunity to impact that environment and make it what you want it to be and what it needs to be. So I think we have this concept, this misnomer that in the security industry, on all sides of it, whether we're providing a service and selling a product, or we're security organization leaders or practitioners, that you have to lead with an iron fist. You got to be a badass. You got to be alpha. You got to be in people's faces. You have to be this pit bull. And I just don't think it's true. I think it creates that negative impact on the ripple effect to those around you. And I told the story to us when we were prepping for the panel, is that I actually know people in the industry that have been that way for so long that they have limited the amount of people willing to work with them because no one wants to be around them. So service, they can only get certain people to provide them service. So they're in essence alienating their organization because they can't get along with people. And people are just like, hey, your headache isn't worth your money. I'm not going to do business with you. And so not so I don't want people to misunderstand kindness as weak or passive or not holding people accountable. You can be, I would find it hard to believe that any of us would be in the roles that we're in if we weren't professionals and held people accountable and believed in professional excellence. But you can still do that in a way that doesn't tear others down. And so I think that's where you can bring, and I will say, it lifts our industry up to a level of recognition and acknowledgement that's above the fray. So a lot of people kind of look down on the security industry as this, mall cop, knucklehead, knuckle dragger kind of industry. And if the people you interact with treat you like garbage, that's the reflection you're going to have of the industry. So if you have the guy who knows karate pretending to be an EP person, and that's who you think the industry is, as you mentioned on the panel before, then and he treats you like garbage, and your interaction with security professionals is that, then that leaves a stain, on all of us. So I think we have an obligation to represent ourselves in a certain way and spread this positivity throughout, not just us as an industry internally and interacting with each other, but then as we interact with people outside.
John and Phelim both brought up really good points, actually. One, that the industry is small, Phelim said. However, I would argue that while it's small, it's quite impactful. Some people here may be security guards, some people may be a line supervisor, and security management traditional would say oh, well, those are, the unskilled, the little guys. They're necessary, but they're a pain. And why are they a pain? Because they have a profound impact on the organizations that they serve, because they are the front line, they are the face. And so with such an impactful job and role, wherever we go, we need to understand how to best deal with everybody we come in contact with. John also says that kindness is often misunderstood, and that is a fact. At the Kindness Games, we define kindness as the willingness, the intention to approach every life scenario, every interaction, and identify the human on the other side of that scenario and say, how would they like this to go? You can apply this to a guard in the lobby. You can apply this to be an event security person. You can apply this to terminations, performance improvement. You can apply it to your marriage. So this leading with kindness philosophy that we advocate for is not just for at home, it's for at work. It's for when you network, right? It's for every aspect of our life to find and identify the human on the other side of that scenario and just try to craft the best experience for them. And that's not weak, actually. That is super engaging. That is magnetic. It brings people to you and allows you to have influence based on how you're impacting the lives of others.
Which makes that makes this panel extra special, because rather than the usual panels that we often engage in, which is, okay, which piece of tech is going to absolutely make you modern? This is a new approach when we look at hiring in a kind way and firing in a kind way. Mark in the audience has a nice point. He says, I think the ability to de-escalate a conflict is just important as being able to manage a conflict, and kindness, empathy are keys to that. So with that in mind, Erin, do you think that there's some sort of marketing, PR, brownie point, plus point in being kind as a security professional? Because you don't want people on the red carpet to suddenly use hardcover or be very dramatic. You don't want that. You want them to be kind in the public eye. Surely there's a public relations benefit to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the more we can lead with kindness, obviously, the bigger it becomes the status quo in the industry. And I think we change the perception from, if you lead with kindness, it's not necessarily weak, but the influence that you have in being known as a kind person is at least in my opinion, probably one of the most badass, excuse my language, things that you can be known for. And this entire conversation and thinking about marketing it and the way that we can transform the industry makes me think about one of my favorite courses in college, and it was a communication course. It was my capstone, and it was called Reception Studies. And it's a communication theory that privileges the context around a message so that the sender can make sure that the receiver receives the message in the way that it was intended by understanding what's surrounding that person, whether it's their headspace, the way that they've been socialized, the schooling that they've had. There's a number of things that go into privileging the context around that interaction. And I think that this goes back to how we can operate as security professionals and really understanding, okay, if we're putting a new technology out there, maybe it does bring us into the modern world, but how do we bring it back to that human value? So if we're suddenly making touchless experiences and seamless access for physical security spaces mainstream, and we're deploying all of these really cool technologies, those things take away tension from people interacting with physical buildings, but it also gives the opportunity for someone else to have a more human element and really elevate that human element of the interaction when someone steps into a building. So say there's a security guard or a concierge at a building, it gives them the ability to have, total trust that the security system is working the way that it should, but it also gives them the ability to greet the guests and say hello or good morning, because they're not worried about all of these auxiliary things that have to do with the security system. And so I think the more that we can really drive the conversation around, let's meet people where they are, drive with kindness, you build a relationship, and then you're known as being someone who walks into situations with intentionality around being grateful for the impact that you can have in that situation, the impact that you can have with that other person, gratefulness for the skills that you have to be able to deliver half of that relationship, and then work with other people and bring other people into those conversations. That's an incredible impact. And that's how security gets done, at least in my opinion. I mean, it's not much different than all of the different technologies that have to come together. We have to acknowledge that things work together differently. Different things are meant to do different aspects of the security job. And if we can elevate those technologies to really engage with the human elements of the human interactions that are happening, I think we'll be in a good spot to bring security industry into the modern world.
And Phelim, if I could draw back on something you mentioned earlier about like the quote unquote modern leader. If you read, there's a really good book called Good to Great. That was it's like a business book that diagnoses some like epic great businesses and kind of creates a framework for what business greatness is, looking at like GE and Wells Fargo and a lot of companies that like had the largest sustainable growth over like a 20-year period and through like the 80s and 90s. Okay. Interestingly enough, if you look at some of those companies now, they've had cultural failures from a leadership perspective, like Wells Fargo with their fraud, that have sunk the ship a little bit. So that's an aside, but an interesting one. What the book does is describe what they define as a level 5 leader, right? So like all these companies had this level 5 leader, and so even back then, as this was being written, I think almost 2 decades ago, empathy and empathetic leadership was a capstone of that criteria of how, what are these? So it wasn't just like, they got to be like Steve Jobs and be super creative and innovative. They're not like an Elon Musk. They're not. So some of those guys have aspects of it, but they're like, when you think of what makes leaders great, ultimately they make other people's jobs easier, whether they're their customers, their clients, their coworkers, the people who work under them or beside them. And you can't do that without focusing on trying to do what's best for them, for having that human interaction, like what Tim talked about. I mean, just the concept of and this was when Tim and I were having these discussions, and Lee Outen was involved in just the concept of what does the other person on the other side of this interaction want out of this? What does good look like for them? And I mean, think about being a security officer who has a frustrated person who comes up to them whose badge isn't working, right? They're late for a meeting. They just need to get it, like whatever. Like all you're thinking about typically is my job is to not let bad people in. So, right. But if you flip that and say, what do they want? What do I need? And how do we come to a common solution here where we both get our needs met, regardless of anything? Like that starts to become just like a cultural game changer that I think can swing throughout an organization. And whether it's, again, like Erin and I are talking about, or on the service technology provision side, where we're saying, how are we going to sell people stuff or get people interested in our products? If we suck as people, are they really going to want to buy stuff from us if I'm an asshole? Or if they're like, John's a nice guy. Now, that may not make my product better, right? That has to live on its own. So like my product's got to be good, but if I'm good product and I'm a mean person, that's a reason not to buy from me. But if I have a good product and I'm a nice person, that's a reason to buy from me.
I like that, and people love to buy from people, not it's why they buy why you do it, not what you do. But then, Jason, let me come to you then, because we mentioned briefly reputational risk, and I think it'd be nice to marry that topic that John was just talking about with reputational risk, because it seems to me that this is an opportunity for physical security providers to bundle something extra. We'll give you EP, we'll do K&R if things go wrong, but we can also do reputational risk, such as making sure that you don't look too hard as you move through a crowd, that you don't have any missteps, mishaps, and I don't, as a security professional, look the wrong part. Now, this happens in the music profession all the time, and we can go into that because there's, oh, this face fits, this face doesn't, and there's a whole equality and diversity thing to that. Let's park that. Let's think much more around reputational risk management. How can that be a service, Jason?
I mean, it's like the foremost discussion we have when it comes to like customer service. We want to make our customers look fantastic all the time. That's our job. And that's, I mean, a lot of people kind of undervalue just that overall brand of thinking of just wanting to make everyone else around you look good. You do the same thing with your customers. And the same type of situation can apply to security. It does apply to security. And a lot of people don't associate it with security. Like you say, that in the event that we're in a building is a perfect example. You use the red carpet to your example, and in a building, you know, if something looks terrible on stage, we'll call it, where the officer is being seen, where they're checking people in and greeting everyone as they're coming in the front doors. But if there's a spill everywhere, or there's, you know, something impeding traffic, or there's a big barrier or a big burly officer, we'll call them that, it doesn't make people feel uncomfortable, and it makes the building and the customer look bad in itself. So part of that same degree, I mean, like you can look at it from a reputational standpoint, like you said, making sure that our officers represent that same reputation, but also, again, making that reputation more valuable, more trustworthy, more even empathetic. I think that's one thing that brands are doing really well, I think, nowadays, is that they start to realize that believing in what their customers believe in is an important part of identifying with their customers and really kind of helping them find a reason to do business with you to some degree. So yeah, there's a lot that you could say about the security industry that really could kind of bring all of that all together from so many different aspects, in my opinion.
And that gets organizational buy-in, both external and internal. So Tim, why is this then not just fluffy and heartwarming and nice? Why is this a business proposition?
Well, I mean, it's a business proposition because you're creating a tailored programmatic approach to the way you're going to approach life. So essentially, you are learning to interact, to intake the stimuli from the world and treat it with curiosity. And instead of reacting to it, especially when it's negative, you're asking yourself, like, why is this important? Like, why am I being treated like this right now? Why is this person speaking to me right now like this? Why? And here's the thing. If somebody comes at you and says, hey, you did a terrible job, your first reaction is going to be like, I know, if you know. Or it's going to be like, no, I'm amazing. And so you instantly have the conflict. But if we say, that's really interesting, I actually thought I did a pretty good job. Why do you think I did a bad job? we actually decrease our emotional response. We take the back seat and we lean in from the place of curiosity and we ask somebody to explain. I think 90% of escalation comes from miscommunication or misunderstanding. So just the simple fact that we put ourselves in the place of curiosity to better understand the stimuli coming at us so that we can respond the most appropriately to most effectively engage the person on the other side, that's a great business proposition. Most of your customer service complaints are because I didn't like their tone. I didn't like the way they said this. I didn't like. And honestly, a lot of times in the security industry, we come from the military, we come from government, we come from law enforcement, and we are used to, I'm in the position where somebody is attacking me or plotting an attack against me, so I need to be ready to defend. But here's the thing. Most of us in security, we're there to protect, not defend. Defending is very reactive in the moment. Protecting is a strategic approach. So we need to take that same strategic approach to protect ourselves by thinking, by leading with curiosity, to protect our clients by fully understanding the situation. And that in itself de-escalates us so that we can more clearly see and engage the world. And another thing is sometimes I'm in my flow. Like I'm in the moment to where this is like the best thing that I do. Like I am leading this, like we are killing it. And I often in that moment don't realize that I'm pushing people to the margins, right? I'm taking up all the space in the room. And so even those things that we're really good at, the things that we can't help but do well, having a little foresight, dialing it down a little bit, having a plan of how I want to show up and the purpose why I want to show up that way will allow us to actually see how we're affecting the room and engage it more effectively so that we can still be doing the thing that we do great, but we can bring other people along for it.
I love it. And in the comments, people are very much agreeing with you. And I know, Erin, you recommended a book about regarding empathy and emotional intelligence by Alan Alda. Maybe then that's a good segue. Erin, we're talking about better communication and therefore not so much aggression, more candor, absolute candor, maybe not, but more candor and more emotional intelligence. Honestly, I think a few years ago, we wouldn't have seen this topic at a corporate security modernization forum because they've gone, I don't understand. This is not a SOC. This is not a radio. This is not something tangible. How can we use more candor in an empathetic way?
I think candor is one of the greatest gifts you can give to someone if it's done in the right way. And I think that is sometimes where people get hung up on whether or not to be as direct as possible with someone. And I'm thinking back to a quote that says, I think it goes, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions. And I think that speaks volumes to how people feel about candor, because a lot of the time, I think, especially radical candor, if we're going by like the book definition, is usually under the realm of constructive criticism. It is not always positive feedback, but it is often feedback that can help you pivot and grow and evolve. And I've been in situations where I spoke to a bunch of executives, I welcomed them into a program, and a mentor of mine called me afterwards, and I did not prepare as well as I should have. He called me afterwards and he goes, you didn't show up for yourself. He goes, you could have done better. You didn't do all the things that you needed to do to really perform your best. And that was hard to hear, but such a gift, because I knew that the person who called me had every intention of making me better by pointing out that I didn't show up for myself. And he did it in a very, I would say, a very comfortable way, where he was just like, hey, we need to talk about this. And it was very straightforward, and it came from a place of care. And I think we often forget, and I think that this goes to just the way that the security industry is with relationships. We often forget that we can help people be the best version of themselves. And when we get into a competitive mindset, which can often happen between people and between companies, we forget that the impact that we can have can help someone elevate themselves and make someone better, and also make ourselves better in the process. And I think bringing candor into the conversation and really making sure people know that if we are saying something, whether it's positive or negative, if it's positive, it's because we want to celebrate that moment with them, whether it was something they achieved, whether it was an impact they did, maybe it's a panel that they sat on and they represented themselves and their viewpoints really well. Being able to directly compliment them is almost just as hard as being able to say, hey, I disagreed with some of your points, or hey, I don't think you fully prepared for this as well as you could have. And, anyone who knows me knows I'm really involved with young professionals in the industry. Young professionals, and I think I can speak on behalf of them, absolutely love getting feedback, and we're not afraid to get harsh feedback. But if it comes from a place of tearing us down, we will shut you out and you have lost our trust. But if it comes from a place of really engaging with us and helping us guide our new, navigation through new experiences, we're willing to take a step back, reflect, pivot, change, enhance, de-escalate, whatever we need to do. But there's a lot of trust that comes with letting candor into your life. And I think that trust is only established if you have a foundation of kindness that's consistent through every interaction you have. Because if you pick and choose where you're kind, no one can trust that you'll be someone who is really nice in front of you and nice behind your back. And it goes to a conversation of integrity at that point. So I think it comes full circle. And that was a really long-winded answer, but I think candor is absolutely necessary. It's built on a foundation of trust. It goes back to integrity. And at the end of the day, it's a conversation around empathy and being able to say, if I didn't perform well, I would want someone to let me know. So I'm going to try and let that person know too.
And Erin, is it fair to say, so I've heard this, I don't know where I heard it from, but it's a saying that you can only push somebody as far as your trust is with them. So there's equal distance, trust, and push. And so when you start getting into, I assume that the ability for you to take that feedback from that individual was based on the trust you have and knowing it came from a place of love and care, right? So there's groundwork that has to be done by a leader in order to create high performing teams and develop that. So, and this isn't security industry stuff. I coach youth, high school and college lacrosse. And I apply the same principles to the college team I'm coaching now. They've won 6 national championships and they've been a top 5 team for 15 years in a row. And I played for them back in 2007. All of our coaching staff are graduates. And we start with love and trust and engagement because we're going to push those guys to the edge. But they have to know that we care about them in order for them to do that. In the professional world, a lot of times I've been around and performed with high output teams, and we've probably all been a part of that. If my boss doesn't give a shit about me, I'm going to stop right where I can be fired. If I'm like, why am I doing this? This guy or gal doesn't care about me. Your output and performance peaks off probably 70%-ish, right? I can get a C average and they're not going to be able to get rid of me. I need the check. I need the healthcare. I'm going to be right here. Now, so think about it. There's actually a book written on this by Liz Wiseman. It's called Multipliers, about how effective leadership multiplies the output of your organization. So I think you have a standard team operating around 70, 80%. The real high operators, they'll leave eventually because they look around and are like, I can't operate like this. Look at everybody else sucking and being mediocre. I want high output. I'm leaving. So your good people leave. You're stuck with a crappy team. And it's because you don't know how to get the best out of you. Bring in a high multiplier leader. Even if you just get 20 more percent, think about that. You got your people humming at 90% now. The aggregate output that you've created by doing nothing but being better as a leader and trusting your people and getting the best out of them, think about that. 10 people, 20% more each. You've created a multiplication effect of adding headcount with doing nothing but being better at your job and being more empathetic and being a good leader. So in a world where we're more than ever, if you've listened to a lot of the panels today, having to do more with less, because we have supply shortages, we have talent shortages, we have all types of stuff. People aren't coming into the industry. If you can create rock star teams, you will be better than the people standing next to you. And that's a competitive advantage no matter what you do in the security industry.
A great sentiment. And I feel that is where we have to end it on, because obviously this is a topic that's not going away. Mental health, well-being, kindness, it's very important. There was a statistic came out just the other day that in the last year alone in the UK, psychosis incidents have gone up 29%. Now, I have no idea about the States. I should have really done that before I came on this event and found out. But basically, it is a really big deal. A really big deal. We are over time, but I thought I'd let it overrun because I thought this is such a great topic to capture. And I think it belongs squarely in a corporate security modernization forum. Not just gates, guns, and guards, not just the SOC of the future and the sparkly boxes, but kindness. John, Jason, Erin, and Tim, thank you for being such great panelists.
Thanks for having us.
I see you put the kindness games in the chat function. Please do put more details on the Discord channel as well. And we look forward to seeing you shortly.
This was a little disappointing though, because I was under the impression Erin and I were going to sing. But
Next time. Next time.
I tell you what, go on the Discord channel in the voice channel, and you can sing together in the voice channel.
And that's an idea.
I'll see you on Discord. Thanks very much. Please give them a great round of applause.
Everyone.